Hello everybody, it's Father Rich here with the 10 best albums from 1983, or my top favorites, my 10 favorites. It's actually going to be 11, because when I initially came up with my top 10, there was another album that I didn't realize came out in 1983. It's an album that I just bought this past year. It's an album that wouldn't have been included if I did this a year ago. And I didn't want to eliminate my initial number 10 because it's the only one I have in common with Stephen Carlson. And I can't do a top 10 without having at least one in common with Steve Carlson. And it's Talking Heads, Speaking in Tongues. It starts out with Burning Down the House, and it ends with This Must Be the Place, the naive melody, a song about home. And it's a great way to start and finish the album. And all the songs in between are really good. Tina's bass is as funky as funk can get. The Talking Heads produced this album. They dropped the dead weight of Brian Eno and produced a great album. Number 10, Suicidal Tendencies debut. This album sounds like nothing else sounded like this at the time. Nothing. It's got some great songs. I mean, off the top of my head, on side one, you got Institutionalized, Suicide's an Alternative, and I Shot the Devil. I Shot Reagan. But yeah, Michael Muir's vocals are really great on this. Really, just a good debut album. Another debut, I believe, The Rain Parade. Emergency Third Rail Power Trip. I think this is probably the best of the Paisley Underground records that came out of LA in the early 80s. It's got great guitars, great vocals, great song structures. It has a 60s sound, but it also has a modern sound to it that really works well. The band contains Stephen Roback and David Roback, the brothers. David Roback would later leave the band, and Kendra Smith, she left Dream Syndicate, and they formed Opal, another band that's loosely connected to the Paisley Underground. And I guess they were a couple, and I guess they broke up, and Kendra left Opal, and she was replaced with Hope Sandoval. And that evolved into Mazzy Star. But it all started here. Number 8 is the album that would not have been included a year ago. And it's Show No Mercy by Slayer. A brutally fast album. Brutal lyrical content. It's the dual guitar is like Judas Priest, put in overdrive. It's really good. And yeah, this is an album that I wasn't really into back in the day. And what's surprising about that is these guys are from Huntington Park and Southgate, which borders the 710 freeway on the west side. And at that time, I lived in Bell Gardens and Downey, which borders the east side of the 710 freeway, right just across the freeway from one another. Number 7, Alien Sex Fiend. Fantastic album. A band that's another debut. In fact, all these are debuts so far except for the Talking Heads. Now this album cover, I don't think it would have stood out to me, really. But I did purchase their a 7-inch that came out before this, and I bought it just solely based on the picture sleeve. I go, man, I gotta hear what this sounds like. And yeah, they're a very unique band. Kind of a 60s guitar, but also very powerful at times. It's got some simplistic synths. It's got a really good driving drums and very unique and great vocals by Nick Fiend. Not a bad song on the album. Number 6 is GBH. City Baby's Revenge, another fast driving album. And they're at the top of their game right here. Though they didn't really make a bad album. You know, I mean, you could say this is their best album, but they didn't fall off a cliff after this. I mean, they continue to make good albums. And they're still going around today, I believe. And I think they're all original members except for the drummer, you know. This is a really good album. Okay, now we're on my top 5. And we're going to go with Misfits, Earth AD. Another fast driving album. The songs don't sound quite as melodic as their previous album, but I think it's because of the speed. I think if you slowed these down to mid-tempo, they would still have the same melody, song structure as their earlier stuff. Great vocals by Danzig, and it's my number 5. My number 4 is Rudimentary Peni, Death Church, another debut album. They're very short songs, guitar driven, great vocals by Nick Blanco. They're associated with the crust punk, but they do have their own unique sound. But the subject matter, I mean, the first song is 1/4 of the world is dead, and the other 3/4 are starving to death, you know, so it's that kind of. But there's one song on here, Rotten to the Core. It's a little bit longer than a lot of these others. And it's about rock stars, and it's pretty brutal. It's mostly mid-tempo songs. There are some fast ones, but very good, catchy songs. My number 3 is Sex Gang Children with Song and Legend. A great album. I think a great album cover with this Indian picture. It's got the song Sebastian. It's the only song I remember hearing on K-Rock, but only a couple of times. But it's got great songs. The Crack Up, Killer K. It's just a great, unique album. Another one that's associated with the goth movement. Now, I saw them in '83 and at Perkins Palace in Pasadena. It could have been '84, but I'm pretty sure it was '83. And I couldn't tell if Andy's Sex Gang was a dude or a gal. Not that it mattered. This is Andy right here. And you couldn't tell by his voice either. And his voice is pretty weird. And that might be the one thing that people don't like about this is his voice. But I love it. It's great. It's my 3rd. My 2nd favorite is Minor Threat, Out of Step. I think this is a much better album than their first. I think these songs are more personal, and I relate to them more. And just great vocals, very hard-hitting songs, and from one of the most important and influential hardcore punk bands in the 80s. And it's a great album. This is an original with the black on the back cover. I did pick this up a couple of years ago. I found it very cheap. Yeah, I'll pick it up. It says up here, pay no more than $5. It's like a 3rd press or something. I did a sound comparison. My audio file, put it on. I can't tell the difference. And the best album, my favorite, is Death in June. The Guilty Have No Pride. A great album. Another one that's kind of associated with the goth. Kind of industrial sounding. I know the goths that I knew like this band, or they're the ones that turned me on to it. A good variation in their songs. The types of, how they sounded. Though you could tell it was the same band. You could tell by the vocals. Take the songs from side 1, for example. Till the Living Flesh is Burned. It starts out with this plinkling, tinkling. I don't know if they're hitting the strings of a piano or they're actually touching the keys, or if they're hitting, wind chimes. You know, it just has this ding, ding, ding sound, very faint. And then this pounding and tribal drums come in. The second song starts out very weirdly. It's like a vocal loop that they use, but it's distorted and it kind of sounds like and they take that sound clip and it just repeats over and over and over through the whole song, and it gives it a really eerie sound. Now when the guitars come in, you don't hear it as much, but it is still there. State Laughter is more of an acoustic, slower mid-tempo. All these songs are kind of slow mid-tempo, but it has trumpet in it, and that, you know, makes it stand out. And then Nothing Changes, the last song, is more of an industrial, has an industrial beat to it. And yeah, this is my number one album, 1983. I mean, isn't this everybody's number one album from '83? Take care, everybody. Dodgers play tonight, but this will be uploaded tomorrow.